And we really encourage you to consider wise speech and wise presence while you're here. There might be a lot of different lived experiences in this room. So when we're sharing with each other or connecting, to just be conscious of that desire of welcoming and generosity. That includes maybe being mindful of our own speech and mindful of how we may interpret what someone else is saying or stating. Just recognizing with humility how much we don't know. How much we don't know. This is a pretty special evening for Chandra and I to be joining forces and wielding our mighty swords of compassion together from two different angles to more effectively cut through all the bullshit and wake up right here, at least in this lifetime. So that's our goal. You guys in for it? Let's do it. So before we get started, I would love to know, anyone here for their first time tonight? Yay, welcome. And anyone here never done a feeding your demons practice before?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh,
yay, welcome.
Freshies. So this evening we'll be doing feeding your demons, and I'm going to kick off for you all with just a little bit of framing. So it's a little different than the traditional format we have for the nights here, which include a meditation. Sometimes I force people to talk to each other, and they kind of think they don't like it, but they end up loving it, I hope. And then we have a discussion. But this evening, what we're going to do is have a little bit of framing or priming of the pump. And then we will go into the Feeding Your Demons practice, and then we will have time to kind of discuss and talk after that. So that's our platform. So for now, if you're kind of like holding your full lotus with a lot of pressure and tension, you can relax for just a little while before we start. And I would like to introduce this evening by considering these two frameworks of feeding your demons and cultivating emotional balance. As many of you know, feeding your demons is a practice that we were really fortunate enough to do a research study on here about a year ago. And one of our other research collaborators is here tonight, Philippe Goldin. And this afternoon, we were all talking about what was powerful about this study, about looking at this ancient practice derived from Tibetan Buddhism, which you'll hear a lot more about when Chandra speaks, and then created as a secular platform for all of us to benefit from. And one of the most important findings was the cultivation of self-compassion, being able to look towards that which is hard. And when I think about cultivating emotional balance, which is a training based in Western psychology and Eastern contemplative approaches to emotion, I realize there's a lot of overlap here, and it's something we've talked about for years now, of how these two modalities share a lot of kind of common lineage and goals. And I think if you think about it in just, a couple steps, really this is about turning towards what is difficult, transforming that which is difficult by the turning towards, and then resting in a place that feels like basically okay, or a place of true nature or deeper being. And before we even go farther, that is the experience when you have an intrinsic feeling of things being good without any external stimulus. Has anybody ever experienced that? Once in a while, between texts, occasionally? I'm joking, but it's sometimes it's hard to remember that our own mind and body can occasionally be a place that feels good. And that part of our practice here in meditation is looking for what is in the way of that. We don't necessarily need to generate anything new. We need to bring forth and purify that which keeps getting in the way. There's a lot in the way. It comes up and comes around from all different angles. One of the ways that I really focus on here and with you all who've taken cultivating emotional balance is especially looking at how our emotions can obscure that deeper being, that sense of intrinsic okayness. So when we think about identifying and investigating that which is in the way, we can start by using this kind of granular level of looking at our emotions. So I would invite you all to just take a moment and consider, was there an emotion today that got in the way of feeling at peace and at ease? Does anyone not resonate to that? We want your secrets. So what I'm going to ask you to do is, in order for us to start really kind of generating a sense of what we're going to call forth in visualization, I'd like you to use speaking to one another as a practice to start considering this. And as always, I know that this is an ask. Mostly you want to come here to receive and relax, and here I'm asking you to engage. But it's not just because I do fundamentally believe that social connection is an essential part of our transformative practice of waking up. That is true. It's also because our ability to connect with our experience is increased when we're sharing it with someone. If I'm like, what was a hard emotion today? You're like, I was so frustrated by Bart. I'll just use our common denominator. I was so frustrated by Bart. Man, that person got on the train and didn't even look at me. Wait, what did I have for dinner? Wait, what's happening tomorrow? Like, we space out. When there's someone in front of us and we are describing what was frustrating today, we stay on point. We pay attention. So that's part of the reason why we are going to do just a little bit, no more than 5 minutes of connecting with one another. So first, please find one person next to you. If there's an odd number, we'll do groups of 3. Raise your hand if you have no one next to you or don't know who to turn towards. All right. Anyone not have a partner who needs one, raise your hand. Okay. So the first question, and I'm going to ask you to, you don't have to get specific. You don't have to say, this is what happened. Whoops. This was the difficult situation. We don't need the whole story and the whole drama. Just say, I had a difficult emotional experience today. You can leave that to yourself. We'll get to the story later. So the first person will go, and you'll have only 2 minutes. And in the 2 minutes, what did it feel like when you had just one difficult emotional experience today? Okay? Embodied experience, subjective psychological experience. What did it feel like? Okay? 2 minutes, and the person who has the most colorful socks will start.
Yeah, I wish.
Yes, good.
Stop.
I can see it.
Can you?
Essentially. Clever. Good. Really leaning on those.
Yeah.
Okay, and just take a minute and close your eyes before you thank your partner. And maybe what you'll notice is that in evoking and remembering this memory, there's some physiological, whether or not we are directly living or recalling, our body, how to pay attention towards the experience of emotion. And then I want you to take a moment and reflect on, is this experience familiar? Is there a story? Is there a history? And this time, only 1 minute, and only what you feel comfortable sharing. You could just say, this is a familiar story and I don't like it. Or you could go deeper. Yes, this is my same story of self-doubt. This is my same story of perfectionism. This is my same story of whatever it is. So in just 1 minute, go back to your, again, the person to share, and I will ring the bell to switch. Okay, so this time truly thank your partner. And just taking a moment to notice any difference you might feel in the body. What does it mean to bring some light and awareness to this difficult experience, what it felt like? Maybe understanding a bit of its roots, even in that small amount of time. When we think about the psychological science of emotion, the majority of what we do to regulate our emotion experiences is bring awareness. And then we consider, is there something we can say, we can appraise? Like, it's okay. I love you, I care. Not that big of a deal. I'm working on it. And this is helpful. So if there's something you'd like to say to yourself, to that experience, just find the simple words and softly provide just that little bit of support. And gently come back into the room here together. So we can use these kind of cognitive tools for transformation. Identifying, recognizing, connecting with another person indeed, and sharing. But also, when we think of transformation, it can happen through the direct knowing. And that's where feeding your demons practice can come in. It can happen, of course, when we're meditating. We can have a memory come up, We have a new awareness of ourself, and it kind of melts away. No structure, just happens to allow an unfolding and unwinding. It's one of the things many of us enjoy, the insights of our practice, the melting. But this idea that we can also directly face or turn towards in order to create transformation, this is another beautiful opportunity. And we were talking earlier about what is transformation. We think about this process. We're not going to get rid of our difficult emotions, right? Could you have even one day without one difficult emotion? No, that's not going to happen, I'm sorry. Yet, how do we transform our experience of what we consider difficult? And it's through revealing the wisdom of what it is that's difficult can show us and infusing it completely with compassion.
And set up, warm up. I hope this is working. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Eve. Yeah, so appreciate that. And one thing that comes to mind, you actually mentioned pull out the root, or what did you say? Pull out the root, or connect with the root of what it is, the emotion, the challenge that's seemingly interrupting our experience of freedom and getting in the way of our happiness. And it made me think of a metaphor that's used often in Buddhism about the difference between the earlier, more foundational techniques of meditation and philosophy and approach to life versus the latter kind of movement towards Tantra, which is more integration. And the metaphor is that of a poisonous plant. So in the earlier traditions of renunciation, celibacy, turning away from samsara as the root and source of suffering, or at least grasping onto samsara as the source or root of suffering, the analogy in those earlier sutric teachings are to cut. If you see a poisonous plant, chop it, do away with it, turn away from it. Don't go there. So turn away from desire, turn away from anger, turn away, avoid enacting these so-called poisonous emotions. But then later, as time progresses and the path grows and evolves and accommodates and adapts according to people's needs and time moves on, you have this amazing flowering of a new interpretation of both Hindu or Vedic teachings and Buddhist teachings that's called Tantra. And Tantra is where there is a shift of turning towards samsara. So rather than renouncing life, this body, our desires, sex, the beauty of the world, instead of turning away from it, it becomes a part of the path. And the metaphor with this poisonous plant is to take it, dig it up, and transform it into medicine, which can happen when you have skill. And that is just what Tantra is called, is the path of transformation. So the earlier path is the path of renunciation. We renounce desire. We renounce the world as the source of our happiness. There's a lot of wisdom there. And we can also look at this developmentally within the individual, not just historically. For example, maybe you're addicted to opioids. And you're in samsara through this addiction, you're craving and addicted. Well, the first step is to move away from it, is to cut it out. Cut it at the root, don't do it, don't indulge. And then work and heal with that. Now, I'm not saying that then the next step is to transform and to integrate the opioids, but the work is in the latter stages of our evolution is to integrate the emotional basis, the emotional life that brought us to wanting to fill ourselves with, pleasure or numbing the pain. So we turn towards the pain so that then we can create our own opioid through a meditative practice or a psychological practice. So this metaphor of the poisonous plant is very interesting, and it brings us to this practice of feeding your demons, because in feeding your demons, we are doing just that. We are turning towards that which we feel is a hindrance or a block in our life, and we get to know it. We dig it up a little bit. We pull it out. What is that lurking beneath the surface? What is there? that I can learn from this so-called poison in order to grow and mature on the path and become a more integrated human being and to feel more of a sense of freedom in my life. And so feeding your demons, we call it FYD because I know feeding your demons can sometimes be a little bit like, what? I don't want to do that. That does not sound like how I want to spend my evening. But I think that you hopefully will find that, moving into the darkness, moving into the shadow, the places that scare us, brings a certain feeling of adventure, but also of deep satisfaction that we can't get by just turning on Netflix. And also, demons, people think, oh, does it have to be like my worst demon, or does it have to be does it have to be a painful thing? You don't have to work with like your biggest, darkest shadow tonight. If you want to, you can, okay? I'm going to let you self-select. But you can also, like on a scale from 1 to 10, maybe tonight, if this is your first time, you could maybe work with something that's a little milder, maybe a 3, 4, 5 on the scale from easy to most difficult. Maybe it's a subtle annoyance that you have with an acquaintance or somebody at work. Maybe there's a feeling of irritation that you have in a social dynamic. Maybe I remember once when I was doing a lot of these sessions to get certified, I had to feed 108. I had to do 108 sessions. So I started to kind of get to the bottom of the barrel, like I was doing pretty good because I had fed a lot of demons and I was feeling pretty integrated. And so I thought, well, what else is there? It doesn't have to be this big emotional catharsis. And I was noticing that in my meditation practice, which I used to love, I was going through an era of loathing. I didn't want to sit down because what was happening was I was distracted in my sits, so I wasn't enjoying them. So then I no longer wanted to go to the cushion. So I took distraction as a demon. So it doesn't have to be a horrible, difficult, dark thing. It can be, what is that little mild irritant that's just been with you for so long and you haven't turned towards it? But then it can also be a core wound. Perfectionism, you mentioned, self-doubt, despair, fear, heartbreak, anxiety, depression, addiction. In the study that we did here with Eve and Philippe, we worked with people who had a history of addiction and anxiety and depression. And we had really, really profound results. So you can work on the whole kind of range, and you can really just choose. Maybe you have chronic pain. Maybe you've got low back pain. Our issues are in our tissues, and so you might be able to uncover something down there. Or maybe you have headaches. I've worked with people who have chronic pain, who have chronic headaches, migraines, and they can get relief from this practice as well. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a psychological ailment, so to speak. It can be maybe you're going through cancer or you have another chronic illness, and there's a lot of emotion that can be tied up in that. So then you can feel it in your body. And so what I've done here is I've mapped out the 5 steps of feeding your demons. And I'll just go through it quickly because I want to dive right in, and this will be the meditative part of our evening. You'll close your eyes, and I'll guide you through a journey of feeding your demons. But before we do it, I just want to tell you the lay of the land here. So the first step, very important, we find the demon in our body. Where does it live most strongly in the body? Now, why do we call it demons? Because feeding your demons is a practice that's based on a very old tantric practice called chud. And chud means to cut through, to sever. And so I won't go into that. That's a whole, we could talk all night about chud. It's very fascinating. And we should do a scientific study of chud. But feeding your demons is like a modern, kind of simplified expression of this ancient tantric practice. And the woman, the yogini, the female teacher who taught chud was named Machik Labdran. And one day, near the end of her life, her child, she had 4 children, her child, who was one of her primary students, asked, "Mom, what is a demon?" And she said, "A demon is that which obstructs your experience of freedom in your life." So that's what we mean by demons. And it has an interesting etymological connection with the ancient Greek term daemon, which is actually your spirit guide. So that's a hint. Okay, so first step, find the so-called demon, the ailment, the pain, the emotional knot in your body, because this is a somatic, a very visceral experience. With Eve, we talked about the story, or maybe a little bit, we thought about the narrative around the thought or the pain. Now we're going to drop that, and we're going to go right into the body. So it's not about figuring it out with the head, okay? Promise? Can you make an agreement? If your mind starts coming and go, why do I have that? Oh my God, when did that start? Just say, thank you, not now. I'm feeling it in my body. So where does it live in your body? I'll guide you through that. Then once we find it and feel it, then step 2 is to personify the demon. So for the moment, I will ask you to just temporarily allow that feeling to take form in front of you as a being. Personified, so with face, limbs, because we're going to dialogue with it. If a rock arises or a tree, I'll invite you to give it form as a personified being so that we can dialogue with it. The third step is then, well, in that second step, you will personify the demon and then you'll ask it 3 questions. What do you want? What do you really need? And how will you feel when you get what you really need? So we're getting down to the deeper truth, the deeper layers of why this energy is knotted up. Then we switch positions, so I'll invite you to spread out and have an empty seat, or you can stand up out of your chair and just turn and face your chair. This is a very important kind of positional aspect of the practice that helps to shift the consciousness. And in step 3, you become the demon. So you feel what it's like to be that anxiety, or you feel what it's like to be that distracted mind in meditation. How does it feel to embody that energy? In the beginning, that can seem a little daunting, but you'll find once you just do it, once you feel it, it's actually very illuminating and not as challenging or difficult as you might project it to be. So I want to invite you to welcome that possibility. And then you speak and answer the questions as the demon. Then step 4, we come back to our original seat, become our normal self again, and then we feed the demon till complete satisfaction. We imagine that we're feeding it whatever it deeply needed most. And so we offer that in the form of nectar, and then that knotted up energy of the demon transforms into the ally. The ally is the daemon, really. It's the spirit guide. It's the liberated energetic expression of the knotted up expression of energy. So it's that energy that's knotted gets to loosen up because it's been addressed, and then it can manifest as the ally. And then we ask the ally some questions, we switch positions and become the ally, and then we come back in the 5th step and rest in awareness. This is the meditative part. The prior 4 steps are like the warm-up to your meditation. So at home, when you have more time, you could spend a half hour there. In 5, in the 5th step. And that's the way this is designed and meant to be. For the sake of time, we'll spend maybe 5 minutes. But this is resting in awareness, and you'll just get to experience your natural state, this basic goodness that Eve spoke of earlier. Okay? So that's the hopefully quick overview. Now I'd like to dive into the practice so that we can enjoy and feel it rather than think and talk about it. So what I'd like to do is invite you to spread out. If you like, we've put some extra chairs back there. The classic way to do this is to have an empty seat in front of you. So I notice some of you already have an empty seat nearby, so you can take that empty seat and put it in front of you. Or if you don't want to bother with that, you can just say, okay, you know what, I'm going to start in my seat, and then when Chandra tells me to switch positions, you can just get up and be the demon as you're standing and facing your original seat. So both methods work. The main point is to have enough room to get up and switch positions. Yeah. Yeah, you can switch, and if you want, you can get an extra cushion would be nice here. Let me, if I can help. You got one? Yeah, you go. I like to think of feeding your demons as like a nice housekeeping, house cleaning moment where if anything's been stagnant in you or you've been holding on to something, if you've been chewing or grappling with something, this is an opportunity to turn towards it, to address it, to befriend it, to meet it and dialogue with it. And so coming to this with an attitude of that everything's welcome here, that you're safe, you're in good company. And really trusting, even if this is your first time, I really want to encourage you to feel that the structure of the 5 steps have a time-tested wisdom to them, and to stay within this framework of the 5 steps and not kind of abandon ship halfway through. Oh, I'm not getting it, blah, blah. Just stay with it and see what happens throughout the full arc of the process. And so, finding a comfortable seat and allowing the eyes to close and keep them closed throughout the full process as much as possible. And we begin by taking some deep relaxation breaths. The first few breaths, breathe into any physical tension you're holding in your body. And then hooking that tension with the breath, release it with the out-breath. And then with your next few breaths, breathing into any emotional tension, feeling where you may be holding emotional tension in your body, breathing into that, hooking with the breath, and then release with the out-breath. And then with your next few breaths, breathe into any mental tension, worries or concerns, feeling where you may be holding mental tension in your body. Breathing into it and then releasing with the out-breath. Feeling that tension melting down, down into the earth beneath you. Now we'll take a moment to arouse our motivation for our practice. And now this first step, feeling into what you'd like to work with today. Maybe you can take some time here to really hone in on what you'd like to work with. It's helpful to feel into what's most at the surface. Maybe something happened today that brought up some feelings of agitation or conflict. Maybe this is an old familiar pattern you'd like to visit in this new way. There may be a few things floating around that you could work with. Just feel into that one thing tonight. And trusting that that is the right thing for now. Just trust. And feel where that feeling, that so-called demon or challenge, lives most strongly in your body. Notice, what is the shape of the feeling. What is the color? What is its texture? Is it jagged or smooth? Rough? Soft? And what is the temperature? Is it cold, hot, warm, or neutral? And now intensify this feeling for a moment. Intensify the sensation. And now allow the sensation, color, texture, and temperature to move out of your body and become personified in front of you as a being with limbs, a face, eyes, and so on. You can help to make a gesture with your hands to move this energy out of your body and allow it to be personified as a being in front of you. Allow the unconscious to offer up the imagery. And if an inanimate object appears, imagine what it would look like if it were personified as some kind of animate being. It doesn't have to be Prismacolor, Technicolor clear. It can be a feeling, a sense. Just trust yourself. And then notice, what is the size of this being in front of you? What is its color? What is the surface of its body like? What is its density? Does it have a gender? And what is its character? Its emotional state? What is the look in its eyes? Now notice something about the demon that you didn't see before. And now you're going to ask this being 3 questions, repeating out loud after me, one by one, without waiting for the answer, because you'll switch positions and become the demon and answer as the demon. So asking after me, what do you want? What do you really need? How will you feel when you get what you really need? Now, switch positions, keeping your eyes closed as much as possible, and turn to face your original seat. And take a moment now to become the demon, settle into the demon's body. Feel free to take a gesture, an expression that helps you embody the energy of the demon. And feel what it's like to be the demon. And notice how your normal self looks from the demon's point of view. And now you'll answer these questions speaking as the demon, really letting yourself embody the energy of the demon as much as possible. Speaking as the demon, but this time you'll speak quietly. You'll basically answer mentally, internally, because we're such a big group. So I'll begin the phrase and you can complete in a full sentence. What I want is... Speaking as the demon, what I really need is the need beneath the want, the deeper need. What I really need is... And when I get what I really need, I will feel. When I get what I really need, I will feel. And take note of this answer, the feeling the demon would have when it gets what it really needs. And when you're ready, return to your original seat, keeping your eyes closed as much as possible. And take a moment to settle back into your own body and see the demon opposite you again. And now, feeding the demon, either imagine that you dissolve your body into nectar or create an infinite supply of nectar that has the quality of the feeling the demon would have when it gets what it really needs. So the answer to that last question. And feed the demon this nectar until complete satisfaction is reached. So we're feeding, not fighting, this energy. Feeding the demon this deeper feeling it would have when it got what it really needed. And just imagine it's flowing from you to the demon in any way that arises in your imagination. It might be light or liquid, rain, flowers, a pool of nectar. Just feed until complete satisfaction is reached. Notice the color of the nectar. And notice what happens as the demon receives the nectar. If the demon seems insatiable, then imagine what it would look like if it were completely satisfied. And now notice if there is a being present after the demon is completely satisfied. If there is a being present in place of the demon, ask this being if it is the ally. If there is no being, or if it says no, it's not the ally, then invite an ally to appear now. Invite an ally to appear. And when you see the ally, notice the qualities of the ally. What is its size? its color. The surface of its body. Its density. Its gender, if it has one. What is its character? Its emotional state. What is the look in its eyes? And now notice something about the ally that you haven't seen yet. And when you really feel connected with the energy of the ally, ask the following questions, repeating after me out loud. How will you help me? How will you protect me? What pledge do you make to me? How can I access you? Now, having asked the questions, change places and become the ally, keeping the eyes closed. And take a moment to settle into the ally's body. Feel free to take a gesture, an expression, a stance that helps you embody the energy of the ally. And notice how it feels to be in the ally's body. And notice how your normal self looks from the ally's point of view. And when you're ready, you'll answer the questions speaking as the ally. I'll begin the phrase and you can complete in a full sentence to yourself quietly, speaking as the ally. I will help you by. I will protect you by. I pledge I will. And you can access me by and then when you're ready, returning back to your original seat, eyes closed. And take a moment to settle back into your own body. And then see the ally opposite you. Seeing the ally in front of you, and look into its eyes and feel its energy pouring into you. As you feel the energy of the ally coming into your body, this spreads all the way down to the soles of your feet, to your fingertips, and throughout your whole body. And now imagine that the ally dissolves into light. And notice the color of this light. And feel this light dissolving into you, integrating this luminosity into every cell of your body. And now you, with the integrated energy of the ally, dissolve. Dissolve and rest in this open state of awareness that is present. Just rest. Now coming back into your body and feel the feet on the floor or the seat on your cushion. Feel the breath in the body. And before you open your eyes, take a moment to remember that feeling of the integrated energy of the ally in your body. That full saturation of that quality of power, wisdom, potency of the ally within you. That is you, part of you. And then maintain that feeling, the integrated energy of the ally within you as you slowly open your eyes and come back into the room. And then we can slowly rearrange the furniture in your enlightened state. What is it, after the ecstasy? Rearrange the furniture.
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
So now we have time for reflections, sharing as a group. You can just listen and be here. You don't have to speak. But if you do have questions or observations, we'd love to share. And I can clarify anything if you had any areas of uncertainty. How was that for you? Yeah.
I was surprised to be able to go through the process. I didn't think when you first explained it that I could do it. But then when you got to the place where you had to feed the demon,
Mm.
I just like, nothing came to me.
Mm.
My body felt like very tight.
Mm.
And I was making like a big effort to try to imagine what it would be like if I could. I don't know. I just got into like a tangle.
Mm.
And after a while, I just like relaxed, and I had the feeling of something happening. And, but it was, I could not embody. I couldn't see the ally.
Ally.
The ally there, like a person or like the limbs or anything. It just like it was an image of water,
Mm.
and so I just like went with that, with the water,
Mm.
and the water was just like a first it was like a fountain, then it was like a stream, and I just like let that happen.
Mm.
I don't know.
That's okay.
What do you think?
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. I'll just kind of maybe reflect back for the folks on the Zoom or YouTube, whatever it is we do. In general, the question was that in the beginning, when you heard me explain it, you didn't know if you could go through it, if you could do this. But then you started and you were going along, and then when it came time to feed, you didn't feel like anything was coming. You were kind of closed or tight. But then you felt, eventually you were able to relax, and then not a being of an ally appeared, but you were able to see water, and that feeling of water, or the flowing water, right? And then were you able to dialogue with that and feel and become it when you switched places? How did that feel for you? Yeah, good. Yeah, that's the most important thing. I think that's why this point of like personifying it is so that we can feel that we can dialogue with it or embody it, but it's not imperative. And from time to time, it will be an inanimate object like water or something else. And if, as long as we can connect with the feeling that's coming from that, whether that's the demon or the ally, then we can do the work with it. We can move through the steps. And so by the end, did you feel that you had a feeling of able to rest in that fifth step where you could rest in awareness? Yeah, good. Yeah, it's fine. It's okay. Yeah, I remember once I had a redwood tree as an ally, and it felt so good. I was like, oh, it's fine. I'll just let it be a redwood tree. I don't need to personify it as anything. But then the guide, the person who was guiding that session said, but imagine what it would look like if it were personified. And then suddenly, she popped open into this like redwood goddess with draping. How the redwood trees have the draping boughs of the tree. Those became her cloaks. And then beneath the cloak, she opened it, and there was this whole city of lights and stars and fish and animals swimming in it. So that question can be a nice, what it is like a little, what is it called in grammar? A subjunctive moment where it's a what if. If it were to happen, what would it be? You know, and then the subconscious goes, oh, and then it can pop out. It can pop into a bigger dimension. Like Carl Jung says that the unconscious or subconscious communicates through imagery. That's the language of the subconscious, imagery. And so that's what we're doing here. We're opening up the doorway or the portal or the chamber of the subconscious so it can come forth with its imagery, rather than imposing visualization onto this scenario to make it right and perfect. We're actually just opening it through the framework of this and letting the subconscious give the imagery. So it's a different thrust. It's not like in Tantra where you're imagining the deities and you're doing spinning the light and the mantra around the heart. You know, that's cool and has benefit. It's beautiful. But that's actually not what we're doing in Feeding Your Demons. So the imagery sometimes it's crystal clear and other times it's a little subtle and nuanced. We have to kind of sneak up on it or let it have some space. You know, like, is it a puppy dog or is it a cat? You know, like you just give it some space like you would a cat and let it come to you when it's ready. Yeah. Or is it slobbering all over you and just saying like, I'm here. Look at me. Yeah.
I have a
Go ahead.
question.
Yes, please.
You were saying that the images might be the language of the subconscious or unconscious.
Yes.
I have thought that sometimes these images are the language of the subtle body.
Oh, yeah.
I'd be curious what you think about that.
Yes.
Just kind of, when I think of, we were talking, what word should we use? Should we use deeper being?
Yeah.
Should we use basic okayness? What's a term that people can resonate to?
Buddha
as a
nature.
sense of being, right, Buddha nature. We can.
Totally different.
Really being within
Similar.
oneself. Language is something we acquire, right? Words are natural-ish. I mean, we use them, but there is a mode of being and thinkingness at an embodied level. And I'm just curious if you think that image might be slightly more our subtle body language.
Yes, I do. I do. And it is subjective in the sense of our cultural and familial and other maybe karmic imprints about who sees what.
Right.
You know, like, okay, in one system, the subtle body may feel and look like this. In another orientation, it may feel and look like that. And so in a way, yes, it's subjective. So it's not like we're saying the language is an objective truth for everybody. But when the body communicates in imagery, or we're imagining the subtle body, or when we're working with the energy in the subtle body, imagery is the language. Absolutely. Yeah. It's a good question. Yeah. Yeah, it's nice to get out of the literal and linear way of language. There's a book that my daughter and I have been thinking about and reading bits of. She's here tonight, and it's called the Alphabet and the Goddess. And it talks about how the advent of written language kind of has a whole process of deadening the earlier forms of communication, ways, circular ways of thinking that were more associated with goddess traditions. So that's an interesting book. And that could also be the language of the subconscious. Yeah. Yeah.
We were curious from you all about whether you had the experience of transformation, if you reflect on your feeding your demons practice and what that felt like. Yeah.
The first time I've done this, I kind of felt like it became reparenting, and that the demon was a really cranky, juvenile, delinquent kid that was still with me today. And I also didn't think that I could do it. I thought I almost wanted to fold out of the room.
Someone did.
But the guidance, I could just, it just kind of flowed pretty good. And I was kind of, and then with the visualization, I always kind of never, a little uncomfortable with that, but I got some, it was nice, I thought.
Good.
I thought it was really good, and it kind of makes sense, and it feels like something that I can reflect back on. And so the demon was kind of like a little kid, and the ally was of a person that I, like a mentor to me, that I, that's no longer with us. That's pretty good, and what's it helping you do? And I just thought the questions were great, and I enjoyed that. So thanks for that.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for your
Thank
courage.
you. Yeah. You stayed. See? Yeah, so that feeling of transformation, the rebellious teenager is definitely a part of us. And so these are all parts of our own psyche, right? We are the angry child. We are the wise mentor. That's all a part of us. We tend to kind of externalize and think, oh, that's out there. But what I love about this practice is it teaches us how to go into those scary places and then find the inner resources and reparent our inner children in ways that are really authentic and real and transformative and changing over time. People will often ask, how do you know if your demon has been completely satiated, if you're done, when you're done? And what Lama Tsultrim, my teacher and the woman who developed the 5 steps of feeding your demons, says is, that that's complete or healed when one day you realize, wait a minute, I'm not doing that anymore. You look back, and for the last few weeks, you haven't been beating up on yourself or eating that thing or doing that behavior. And it's done. It's come to its full arc of life and death, and then you've moved on. So, yeah, thanks for sharing. I'm glad you enjoyed. Yeah. Transformation. Demon into the ally. How was that?
It was quite an experience because I really felt like that I had somebody in front of me all the time, but with different faces, different parts of the body. And in a way they were always trying to tell me something, which it wasn't nothing. I mean, it was maybe a laugh because like I saw the image of my mother. And I don't know what I saw there. And maybe she told me something. But I was like, my mother, or a friend, or nobody, or me, sitting there. The thing is that me, in my mind, my manipulative mind, end up with an image, and it was so cute.
It was an emoji?
An emoji.
Oh, that's what you meant. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Good. These are like our cartoons now, Oftentimes people will say that cartoons come, like Mickey Mouse or Minnie Mouse or wild coyote, or now it's emojis too. It's a part of our creative life, our subconscious. So images are fun. Sometimes we do art with this project, where we'll actually draw the demons and then draw the ally. It's very revealing, and art, making art is a therapeutic process as well, in and of itself. So
Yeah, I feel all the time something. I know that I was feeling because feeling it may be every day, all the time, and you are not conscious of what you're feeling. And just the feeling of feeling was very strong, very interesting, very important.
Yeah, we were actually talking earlier about when something really difficult happens right in the middle of your day. And you can go about your day with healthy distractions. You have things to do, you're busy, but the feelingfulness of that emotion and the story and the way that we can turn towards, it can get lost or delayed until, of course, it wakes us up in the middle of the night. When we feel defenseless and we may not have that same power. And one thing I've learned from Chandra is this practice is so powerful in this formal way. Yet we can take this philosophy and approach into our everyday. Right? Maybe we can't set up a chair across from us right at the moment when we're feeling something. There's not the access, but we can still lean towards, right? And lean towards the difficulty and experience the feelingfulness. And maybe the message is clear, maybe the message is not so clear, but the avoiding, the suppression, one thing we know quite clearly is it doesn't work in a long-term way. It doesn't help us understand, and at a physiological level, it actually doesn't dissipate the feeling. It can exacerbate the feeling. So that which we're pushing away is actually stronger, so that moving towards and being with the feeling so it can naturally dissipate. Yeah, thank you. And thank you for the bravery. It takes a little bravery to just say, I will open my mind to whatever arises. Yeah.
What I noticed when I did the part where I felt I was happy to thing ended up for being something that's going on with me and my partner, and as well as I was feeling those the first steps you were guiding us in, where it was in my body, and then the moment when it became the demon, and this woman wasn't standing in front of me, and I saw that she was really grieving. And I don't think I had, almost like the image, the demon knew ahead of us before I did in a way. I didn't know that when I was feeling the feeling, it was actually grief. I thought it was something else. I was thinking of worry or something. But then when it came out, I thought, oh wow, she was weeping. The demon was weeping. That made me realize, really, I can't remember that happening. I've done this a few times before. I can't remember having the demon show me something that I didn't know.
Yeah. The unconscious, the wisdom of that is so powerful. Sometimes it's more than we could have ever have made happen. It's better to go at it with this beginner's mind. People will often ask, well, what if I want to come back to this same feeling again and again in more of processes? Like I had said earlier, I had to do 108. When you get certified, you have to do a bunch. But it's not like you have to find 108 different problems, Maybe you have 10, but you just revisit them again and again. And so coming at each time totally fresh and not assuming that anything, actually. It's a great lesson in life if we can do that with our own psyche, our own unconscious, come fresh to this sadness and let it take form. Today is one way, maybe tomorrow will be another way. It will morph and transformation over time. See, if in our life, if we're always imposing what we think is supposed to happen or what we think people are supposed to be like, then we're killing the life the creative life of the other and ourselves. And this practice teaches us how to be, okay, curious, what is that? And then we have these new experiences that surprise us, that tickle us, that touch us, that mean something to us. That's transformation. Transformation is also alchemy. So this is an alchemical process of taking the dirt, the muck, and letting it become gold or something different, a crystal, the ally. Yeah. Anyone else?
The part that really stood out to me for that was the actual feeding part of it. That was intense.
Yeah.
I could feel like it was like pumping out of me.
Yeah.
And then I dissociated for a second. And when I came back, I had this like feeling of solidity throughout my chest. Like it had really like very noticeably transformed. When I stopped taking it. Yeah, that was a really powerful part of it.
That's great. Thank you.
I'm behind you. Yes.
I've been through this, done this practice with Chandra maybe a dozen times, and what I can report to you is that it's become more substantial. The process more solid, more useful, more educated, I feel. I think it's a worthwhile thing to do.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I had to switch my email, like sort of when I started, because I got really frustrated because there was no image, which is what happened last time I did this with you. There was just like there's no image. I can't even do this. Like I'm not doing it right. Like I never get an image, and I'm not an imaging person. And whatever they tell you to think of the pink elephant, there's no fucking pink elephant. And I'm just like, and I'm like, oh, I guess I can use that as my demon. And then that way, like no matter what happens, then it's like gonna be okay because the demon is actually not being able to do it right. Yeah, and that helped a little bit. I still really like when you're like, oh, and like tree turned into this guy. I'm like, really? Like, did you actually? I just like I don't have that. Like mine was like a sort of black blob, kind of like a feeling of a blob. Like didn't have. But then once it was the ally, it had an image, but it was a person that I knew. So then it was like, but the image didn't. It won't last very long. It doesn't last. But it was all okay because I was just being being able to.
That's great. Your intuition was right on.
Helped a little bit because I don't know if everybody else just had all these, super strong images, but I just. And you said it's not imagery, but then even when you said like just let it open and it'll just come out, it's like okay.
I'm certain you're not alone in it being hard with the imagery. I think it can grow over time or not,
Yeah, that was
right?
helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep doing it for the
Yeah.
Most of us don't have a lot of space for creative, generative processes of making, unless we are artists or designers. Like that's not what we're doing. So it's totally unfamiliar. Which may be why the cartoons come up, because it's like we go to the childlike time.
Yeah, and also, I've also had the black blobs or the vague cloud. Like I'm not all love and light. I give examples so that I can help demonstrate certain options, but by no means I don't want anybody to feel like they're not good enough if they're not getting everything perfect. And so I think your intuition is brilliant. You were right on right there. Like, oh, this is something I can work with. This is what's really up for me. And that's intelligence right there, and that's beauty and creativity, and so own that and let that keep coming back to that, whether it's through this process or other work. What is that voice? I can't do that, it's not right. We all do that to ourselves. It's really one of the modern day tragedies that we do this to ourselves. And I do it to myself too. And So we all do that, so we can laugh about it and not. One of my therapists, I said, one of my therapists said to me, my first therapist, she said, sounds like you have the serious disease. So we have to, let's try not to have a serious disease about all of this, hold it lightly. And okay, I'm fucking not able to see things like everybody else in the room. That's kind of funny, that's a thought. How do I know everybody else is perfect? I don't. I'm here, I'm doing this again, Have a lighter touch. There's totally somebody else. Like you've said, it's a training up too. It's time. Thank you, Ari, for saying that too. It does. Sometimes it doesn't all come all at once. So patience about that too. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Well, one more. Yeah.
I've done this practice a bunch, and I've also, since I did it a bunch, done a lot of like the ideal parent figure, or I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, like Dylan Sati, where you picture a preacher who's on your side. And in those, I have a really hard time picturing the preacher or the ideal parent figure, which is not dissimilar from picturing the hour. In this, I never have difficulty picturing that.
Interesting.
I feel like it's always because when I go through the questions of the demon, I find out that the demon is not as powerful as I do.
Yeah.
And that their issues are never similar to my issues. And that there is this kind of level, and it becomes really simple for them to picture the ally as well.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it's so interesting when it's flowing and you're not making it happen. It just happens. Sometimes it's clear happening and sometimes it's vague happening, but it's happening. And that the voice that might come in and sabotage that is quieter and you're in this flow. So that happens with trust, it happens with habituation. You've done it a lot, you've done other work. And that's life, That's life. Thank you for sharing. It's cool. Yeah. Okay, last one.
Yay.
Woohoo.
Someone said my ally manifested more energy than I can access in a month. Maybe I might want to revisit this over time and maybe build more stamina.
All right.
They did say to just find one voice and use it.
Wow. Wonderful.
Thank you.
I just want to share appreciation, Chandra, for you leading us through this practice. I haven't gotten to experience it with you for a while, and it's just a real treat, and we're so lucky to all be here learning from you. And you'll be teaching it to people all over the world who need it maybe as much as us, and we'll miss you, but yeah, it's such a treat. So
yeah,
thank you so much.
It's a pleasure to be here. I want more opportunities to work with you in the CEB.
Yeah.
And your intelligence and your depth around emotion and why it's difficult to work with emotion is so interesting, and I think it really enhances this work as well. So let's keep going. We'll do more.
Yes.
And I'll be gone for a month, and I'll be back right before Thanksgiving. So I'll be here in December with you all and sharing. So thank you, Eve, for holding it down. We also have a sub on the 23rd. I don't know who it is. Do you?
Aiko?
Aiko?
Yeah.
Great.
And then I'll be here on the 30th, and details to come, but it will be a bit on the, not exactly the Grateful Dead as in a dead show, but some gratitude around the death and rebirth process on October 30th. So that's to be a little different than, we're taking a tiny bit of a break away from the book just to keep up with opportunities like this and the opportunity of that beautiful time to reflect of Halloween Day, but really Day of the Dead. So, yeah. Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody. Yeah, thank you.
Should we dedicate the merit?
Yes, let's dedicate the merit. Why don't you do it?
Okay. So just coming together for a moment and regathering ourselves into the body, into the heart, into our presence. And considering if there's any benefit that may radiate out from this brave and courageous self-reflection, that benefit could lead us closer towards our own capacity of holding compassion, that all beings could be happy. All beings could know the true causes of their happiness. That all beings could feel ease. That all beings could have that ease of connection. That all beings could be free.
Maybe we have some announcements or anything else that needs to be shared?
So much awesome stuff happening
So
here.
much
It's
great
hard to keep
stuff.
up. 1 year anniversary coming up in 2 weeks. Is that right?
Uh-huh.
Is it November 2nd?
Day of the Dead.
Yeah, we're having a bit of a party, and we're gonna, you can see we have some new art on the wall here. Generally, this is by people who are on the board here. Pretty amazing stuff. Even some people present, but I won't name names. Embarrassing. My name's Dean, and I just want to tell you that we're about to celebrate a year, and it's been quite a ride. We weren't sure if we were going to make it that long, but we're doing okay, and we have